Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
And Jason.
So Chris Rock has kind of sort of responded to Will Smith's apology. Remember, Will said that he reached out to Chris. Chris was not ready for an apology. I can tell you, we know from multiple sources who have absolute direct knowledge of this, that at least up to the point of the apology on Friday, Chris Rock had no interest in talking to Will Smith and was not in any mood to accept his apology. So he performs in Atlanta on Saturday night, and I think what he said says it all.
Yeah, so...
referring to Will Smith as...
Suge Smith.
Suge Smith. I mean...
One of the all-time sort of violent guys out there, right? And he's sort of poking fun at him. And I mean, basic point is, right, I'm not going to be a victim. And
but I think there are 2 points here.
Yeah.
I think just calling him Suge Smith, this is the day after he gives his apology.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. You're absolutely right. It's a slap back in the face,
yes.
Pardon the pun, of Will Smith.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's basically saying, screw you, I'm not accepting this apology.
Correct. Which is Chris Rock has been somewhat consistent about, right? He has no interest in an apology. He thinks that Will acted like a punk, and there's no reason for me to accept an apology.
He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to at all.
And then, before we get into there's something else he said that I thought was really interesting. Before we do, I do think that when you look at what Will Smith said, it reinforces everything I thought about this. This had nothing to do with the alopecia joke, as far as I'm concerned. He could have made a joke about her dress.
Yes.
And he would have done the same thing. And the reason I say that is, remember he said that Will and I have a lot of history.
Right.
That history is not good history, because in 2016, when Chris Rock hosted the Oscars, he took a shot at Will and a shot at Jada, and it was close to the line.
Right.
I mean, it was very personal, at least the way they received it.
Yes. It was personal. That was a tough comment he made about Jada.
It was. And, we don't know what's behind that, but what we were told is they have disliked him ever since.
Right.
And they were ready for bear.
Yes. It seems that they almost had this pre-planned that if Chris Rock said anything about them, and remember, Will's up for Best Actor, so there's going to be jokes poked at him all night, and other people did as well.
Right.
Right? Amy Schumer made jokes at their expense. But when Chris did it, and it was really mild, right? When Chris did it, that triggered.
This was like the husband and wife where they get into this nuclear fight over the toothpaste tube.
Right.
It wasn't about alopecia.
Right.
He was ready to pounce. He hates him. And I mean, I think when he said we had history, look, this is kind of my interpretation, but I've thought this for a long time, and this is what I've heard, is that Will and Jada really disliked him because of what happened then, and apparently there's more history beyond that.
I don't think you have to read that much into it. I mean, he said what he said about the history. Also, like when you said, keep my wife's name out of your mouth over and over again, that wasn't just because of the one time.
Exactly.
Clearly, that's multiple times building up.
Yep. Okay, so the second thing he said that I found really interesting is that he got into the whole notion of everybody saying they're victims of various things in life.
Yep.
And things that are mild by comparison to what most people go through. So here's the statement. Everybody is trying to be an effing victim. And if everybody claims to be a victim, then nobody will hear the real victims, even me getting smacked by Suge Smith. I went to work the next day. I got kids. Anyone who says words hurt has never been punched in the face. I think that's really interesting, because what he's saying is we've all gotten too soft, and everybody, is a victim of something. And that the notion of being a victim shouldn't be used for everybody with every indignity, with every insult. And I think that's what he's really doing here.
I think that's right. You and I have talked about this a lot, about this whole victimhood and how sort of getting soft is one way to phrase it. I mean, just that once you feel victimized, you go out and you exploit that, and you talk about it constantly. There is something to be said, though. Some people really are victimized by words, and I don't want Chris Rock to give too short a shrift to those people who truly have been injured. He does seem to say that he's a victim, though. He says anyone who says words hurt has never been punched in the face. So he says, I've been victimized, and I think by all accounts he has been. He's trying to draw a distinction between physical assault and verbal assault. Yeah, I think largely that's true. I do think there's some verbal assaults, though.
I think he's using words as kind of a metaphor.
Yeah.
You may be right, but I think it's beyond that. I think it's, that our society has become this thing where everybody is a victim, everybody's a survivor of something. And to
his point, and this is one thing that I talk to my kids all the time about, when you claim survivorship when it's something mild or not that offensive or innocuous, you are doing a disservice to those people who truly have been victimized, and obviously there are lots of people like that. And when everybody tries to get on that bandwagon of victimhood, that really does do something awful to true victims of insults, crimes, whatever it is.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it there.
Yeah.
Okay, Elon Musk. Oh my God.
This is unbelievable.
His dad is nuts.
His dad is nuts. Elon is nuts too. I learned a little bit. I was not aware of who his father was. I don't know. Maybe you knew this.
I've read books on Elon.
Okay, so he was a mine owner. He owns a mine in Zimbabwe. A very wealthy entrepreneurial property developer in South Africa. Brings his kids to America early on, and obviously
he didn't bring Elon to America. Elon came to America on his own. No. They got divorced with May, and Elon literally left with $20 in his pocket.
Oh, interesting.
And then came to Canada actually, and he struggled. I mean, Elon hates his father.
Right.
Elon hates his father. Thinks he's evil. Has used the word. So his dad goes on a radio show in Australia. The
Kyle and Jackie O show in Australia.
No relation, I think.
It's a joke that Harvey and I got.
Yeah, that's about it. God, that would be sad.
Yeah.
That would be really sad if nobody gets that.
Well, I don't know. We like having a young audience, so.
I know, but people don't know who Jackie O is.
What do you think, guys in the room?
Hold on.
Know who Jackie O is?
Hold on, Corey. Do you know who Jackie? Oh God,
Cameron.
Cameron. Do you? Okay, 1 out of 2, everybody. Okay, so I mean, this is just crazy. So Errol, his dad, is asked if he's proud of his son because of all of his creations and whatnot. The answer is no.
Yeah.
The answer is no. He says that his favorite son is actually Kimball.
Right. Kimball, by the way, he and Elon invested in the first company together.
They did. They're very
and made
close.
Their first couple $100 million.
Yep.
And he's a huge investor as well in Tesla and SpaceX, a multi-billionaire himself.
And Elon and Kimball are very close.
And they're very close. And he's been very gracious in giving Kimball a lot of credit for the getting going in the industry. But definitely the father prefers Kimball, says, and I thought a remarkable statement, he owns a fleet of vehicles, the dad does, Errol. Not one of them is a Tesla.
No Tesla. And then, look, you can tell that he just has a thing against Elon, but then he goes in and really strikes a low blow. So he was asked about this photograph, and I mean, folks, I don't know if you saw this photo. It's a picture of Elon on a boat in Greece, and he's overweight.
He's been working really hard and hasn't had time to eat well or work out.
He's overweight, okay? Yeah. So they ask him about it, and basically, Elon, Earl, rather than, just saying, look, I'm not going to go after my son, he says, well, he's been eating badly, and then offers a weight loss product to him. Like Elon is going to take this man's advice on what weight he is viciously going after Elon.
Typically, your parents are some of the few people that are allowed to tell you to your face that you don't look good and you need to
not
eat
to the
more
world.
Healthy. Right. Not to the world, number one. And number two, not when you're completely estranged from one another. It's clearly a pot shot. He hates his kid. And it's one thing for him to criticize his business acumen, as crazy as that would be in the case of Elon Musk. Another thing to criticize his product, or to even say that but for me, he never would have achieved these levels of success. But to get so petty as to go after his weight and say that he's been eating badly and urging him to take a weight loss program that he's hawking or something, I don't know why he exactly brought this up. It really does go beyond the pale of what's acceptable even in a father-son relationship, especially publicly, like you said.
I mean, look, I was reading a book last month in June about Elon. It was actually a really interesting book. It was about 5 people. It was about Elon. It was about Jack Ma, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Jeff Bezos.
The titans of industry in the 21st century.
Yeah, and it was by an author who had written about all of them and put it together, and it was a really interesting book. But the part about Elon is that, you really, and I've read other books on him, but he is so shaped by his childhood.
Yeah.
Everybody is, but he processed how he was shaped. I think he understands it, and it really is interesting. And he just harbors such a grudge against his dad. But the idea that the dad would strike back this way, to me, is just shocking, and especially because the dad kind of abandoned the family.
Yeah. It's funny because there's been a lot of criticism leveled at Elon Musk, and some of it rightfully so over the last couple of months, especially about some not particularly forthright business dealings. I wonder if he ever thinks about that in the context of his father and the relationship that they have and the vitriol that they have. And he had, I just seeing Elon Musk say that his father's a terrible person.
But he said that for a long time.
He has said that for a long time. I wonder when people say about Elon Musk, a lot of people criticize him as being a terrible person. I wonder if that strikes home for him at all, or he disassociates his conduct from his father's. I mean, we're all this product of how we were raised to some degree.
I don't think he thinks of, based on everything I know and read, I don't think so. I mean, I think he views himself in a completely separate orbit from this guy. Wants nothing to do with him, feels like he's away from his influence, feels like he was never really shaped by him because of the divorce and the abandonment and all that. And you got to remember, too, Elon, it really is an amazing story that he came to Canada. He wanted to get out of South Africa, came to Canada with no money, with no prospect, ended up on some farm with some distant cousin, and built his life from being a grunt on a farm. I mean, when you really think about it, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
It is really remarkable. And he did this all on his own, and always felt away from his dad's orbit. And that isn't to say that his dad didn't influence him.
Oh, sure he did, of course.
But I don't think in terms of business and everything else, he had a very strong view of what he needed to do. And when he worked in this farm, he was really impressive. You don't think of Elon Musk as a physical guy. He was physical and really managed this farm in a way that impressed the cousins, and it is like, who is this kid?
People who are good at things are good at everything. People that are that smart and work that hard are going to be good at whatever
I was just
they
surprised.
do.
This is manual grunt labor.
Yeah.
And he excelled at it and did things. I don't remember what it was. There was some contraption that you needed to get into, and involved fire, and most workers wouldn't get involved in it and wouldn't get inside of it.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know. He had
He's fascinating dude. For sure.
Fascinating. Okay. Amber Heard. So as if we've heard everything. We haven't.
Yeah.
We haven't. It's crazy that this came out. There were thousands of pages of documents that were released that were not part of the court hearing, but they were issues that each party wanted to raise against the other.
Right. So as in all cases, right, a lot of information, evidence is submitted to the court out of the sight of the jury, out of the sight of the media's eyes, and the judge will rule in advance of the trial on what can be introduced and what cannot be introduced. And there are a lot of things always that cannot be introduced, and it's now come out what those things were that the judge struck down. I thought they were completely salacious. Good job by the judge. I frankly thought the judge allowed a lot much too much. You and I talked about that in
Yeah.
the trial. It was bizarre how much came
But
in.
this was so over the pale.
But Johnny wanted to introduce evidence that Amber used to work as a stripper and an escort.
And we don't know if this is true or not.
We
by
have
the way,
no
we should
idea.
say.
But he wanted to introduce some sort of evidence to support that fact. The judge struck that down.
And by the way, struck it down because even if it were true, and we're not saying it is, we have no idea. But it's what judges do is they weigh the prejudicial impact of evidence against the relevance of the evidence. And when you think about it, every piece of evidence is prejudicial.
Yeah.
By definition, you're trying to sway people with the evidence for you and against the other side.
Right.
So every piece of evidence is prejudicial. The issue is it so prejudicial without enough relevance that it should be out of bounds? And the judge said this was out of bounds.
So now this one clearly seems out of bounds. I think we agree on this. Whether or not she, and again, we have no idea, whether or not she acted as a stripper and an escort is irrelevant to the ultimate decision, the ultimate question of whether he beat her.
Right.
Irrelevant. Now, what she wanted to introduce that the judge struck, I thought is a closer call, right? So her lawyers wanted to enter text messages between Johnny Depp and Marilyn Manson, which allegedly showed Johnny giving Marilyn Manson pointers about how to deal with his own, what they called an Amber type situation. Marilyn Manson was famously accused of a lot of violence towards various partners that he had.
Right.
And Johnny apparently was giving pointers about how to deal with that to Marilyn Manson. That's a pretty close call.
Why are you saying that?
Well, because if he has the thought, I think Johnny's thoughts about how to deal with allegations of domestic abuse might be relevant to how he dealt. If you can draw the parallels.
See, you're assuming the conclusion.
Well, a bit. Yeah, that's right.
Marilyn Manson has said all along that these were lies. And, remember, there's this thing now where there was evidence that one of the accusers may have forged a document making it appear to be an FBI agent and all that. And so there are
the judge,
and all I'm saying is these are allegations from his point of view, Marilyn Manson's point of view, and from Johnny's point of view. Whether it's true or not, they feel like they're in the same boat. And so what the way you could interpret that is Johnny is not saying, "Oh, I'll tell you how to deal with somebody who you abused." Johnny could be saying, "I'll tell you how to deal with somebody who makes up abuse charges."
That might be, I also think that might be a question for the jury to decide whether or not it's true, because there's no investigation here into the truth of the allegations about Marilyn Manson. What would be potentially relevant is Johnny Depp's
but you have
playbook.
you have to get into that in order to understand it.
Well, maybe, or you could just say, look, we would just want to assess Johnny Depp's playbook for dealing with domestic violence allegations, and did he follow that
But why
playbook
is that
here?
Why is that relevant? I mean, he's going to say, "I was screwed over and he was screwed over." That's what he's going to say. And that I was just offering him advice that if somebody does this to you and they're false allegations, here's how you handle it. That would not be relevant. So,
well, he could get up there and say that's what he was doing.
But then the question is, do you open the door and let the judge? Should the judge allow something? Would you allow that in if you were the judge?
Probably not. I think the judge made the right call, but I think it's a lot closer call than introducing evidence that Amber was a stripper and an escort.
Well, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
Boy, that's how bad. We thought this trial opened all the doors.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I know.
Okay, last one. Britney Spears. You gotta love this. So, frankly, I wasn't sure she was even going to write this memoir because she was so active on Instagram making all these allegations. It turns out she's already done the book.
Yeah.
So it's done. She has written the book. Simon & Schuster wanted to publish it early next year.
But they pressed Control P and nothing came out.
No, this is crazy.
There is no paper in the world for them to print Britney Spears' manuscript, Britney Spears' autobiography on.
How can this be? Britney Spears is a victim of the supply chain shortage.
That's right. So it has come out that Britney Spears, that the publisher Simon & Schuster, I believe, doesn't have the supply of paper it would require for them to print because they're expecting huge numbers of copies of this book to be sold. They need to make sure that they can fill bookstores, fill Amazon deliveries, and they can't do that. They say, look, there's just no paper coming in from around the world that would allow us to print this book. We need to hold.
So I have a question about this. So this book certainly young. Well, I don't know. That's actually interesting. I'm guessing this is a book that's going to resonate with people 30 to 50, 30 to 60, something like that.
Yeah, the people that loved Britney once upon a time.
It's not going to be people
Fewer
20.
people that are 20, right?
So what I'm wondering is, because look, I love to read, and I was really nervous when Kindle came out, because I thought, oh God, should I try this? Because I'm so used to holding a book. And now I would never consider holding a book. I mean, I love reading on Kindle. It's just easier.
Yeah.
And so what I was thinking is, number one, I mean, most people have laptops or they have iPads or something like that. And so why wouldn't Simon & Schuster just take the leap and almost say, okay, we're going to release the book, but and I realize it could cut into sales, but if other books can't get released, you have an advantage right now. So why not release it and tell people, hey, there's a supply chain shortage. Everybody should read this book on Kindle or some form of that.
I think statistically the majority of books are still sold in hard
You
copy.
think it's the majority?
I do. Yes. I honestly, I never read a book cover to cover electronically. I buy everything in paper.
Seriously?
Yeah. Everything.
And I thought I was the old dog that couldn't learn a new
Well, you still
trick.
use a Kindle, so I don't.
Well, why is that bad?
Because everybody uses iPads to read their books.
Well,
Nobody uses a Kindle.
no, but I have a small one. It's no. I'm serious.
It's not about the size. Just that it's a product that.
No. I'm sorry. I do have an iPad.
Okay.
I have a Kindle function on my iPad.
I see. Okay, fair enough.
No, but it's a small. It's a small.
Yeah. No, I understand. I understand what you're saying, and it seems beneficial. But it's just maybe old habits die hard. But I think that. We'd have to look this up, but I suspect
this
very
is great.
strongly.
Oh, no, this is great for Simon & Schuster. They come out and say, look, we've been reading about all these celebrities with their carbon footprints and their jets and everything else. We're going to do something for the environment, everybody. We are going to release this book paperless. We're going to release this book so you can only read it on Kindle. And if you don't have Kindle, you're not going to be in the know.
And then there's an Instagram video of Britney going, how does this thing turn on? I don't know how to do this.
We'll see you Wednesday.